o'clock somewhere and it's 5 o'clock here.
Right, I believe it's 5 o'clock.
It is.
Yep, 5:01. Okay, start the meeting at 5:01. Tina.
McSellen,
Here.
Bethany Olet,
Here.
Marie Peisner,
Here.
Tina LeBlanc, Melissa Everett,
She's on another, I think, video.
okay, Jeff Leonowitz,
Here.
Chris Cycli,
Here.
Jaime Cisneros, and I'm going back to Scott Ryder.
Right, Scott Ryder just joined us.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
Scott should be coming. He should be here in a few minutes.
What was that, Gina?
Scott should be coming.
He's here.
He's
Oh,
on.
he is?
Yes,
Oh,
right
he is.
there.
There you
Sorry,
go. He's here.
I was signing off of my watching the governor talk about the schools.
Oh, I guess it's good news is what we hear.
I don't know about that.
Well,
It's hopeful.
all right, so did the roll call. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from
So
June
moved.
11th? Is there any
So moved,
corrections?
Walter.
I first should ask if there's any corrections or comments on the minutes.
Who seconded that?
Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand. Okay. All present are in favor. Thank you. We have no special
I'll
guests.
abstain. Doug will
Okay,
abstain.
Doug's gonna abstain. Although Doug, you could have watched the meeting, and if you watched it, we would take an approval. Okay. All business. Henry Barnard partial roof replacement, the last 11% after the audit. Do we have an update on that?
No, there's no update on phase one.
Okay. How about phase two?
I was hoping that we were going to get phase two released before the end of June, which is the state's fiscal year, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Okay, so probably maybe soon.
Yeah, right. Phase two might be soon.
Okay, and the phase three, Henry Barnard?
Phase three, I spoke with the state earlier today, and I should have an update from them tomorrow as to our project number. So as soon as we get the approval and our project number, then Tom and I can proceed with all the other documents that we need to get this going.
Okay. All right, so I guess you can email me, but anything you need from me, could you CC Walter? Because I'm flying out on the 29th and I'll be back on the 14th. So,
Monday.
yeah, so I'm flying out on Monday at 4 o'clock. So if you need any meetings scheduled or anything like that, you know, you could get in touch with me and Walter, and Deb's been, you know, brought in on this, and she knows that we may have to have a special meeting.
Right. Well, our next meeting is technically July 9th, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that should fall into place if we get the approval. So if we get the approval and the project number, we could probably have everything teed up. So right now I have a Board of Ed meeting scheduled for July 7th. Walter and I were talking about maybe pushing that up to next Tuesday. I don't think we'll be ready to do that for next Tuesday.
Okay.
At least for JFK. So just talking about the Barnard roof, I could probably get the Barnard roof on the July 7th Board of Ed meeting and then hit our regularly scheduled facilities meeting on the 9th to get everything approved and then get into the state for our approval to award. So I think we're okay right now, at least between now and the 14th.
Okay.
Donna, that I don't think I'll need anything special.
Okay, and I guess my question would be to Jeff. Have you reviewed Tom's drawings to date?
Yeah, I did take a look at them initially when we got them all secured. They were addressing the chimney, the metal roof that was over that mechanical room. And I believe there was the standard plumbing, roof drains as we've been doing with the other ones. And I'll let Tom comment on that, but that's what I saw on the drawings and specifications.
Okay. Tom, you have any?
No, I mean, I think we've got a complete set of drawings. We got a couple unusual details that I think we've addressed, and all we need is that project number. Give me a day, we'll get all the numbers on it. We can start routing it through the town officials.
Okay, and now I'll open it up to the committee. Anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns on the Henry Barnard roof, all three phases? Just speak out. Nope, we're all set? Okay. I know when we get this done, there's going to be other committee members anxious to see if solar will work on this roof. So, okay, next, D, roof management plan. I'm sorry. Somebody say something? No, okay. D, roof management plan. Any changes? I have under new business to review the roof referendum plan that we would like to forward to the council. Are there any other things other than that for the roof management plan? Jeff?
Well, at this time, Deputy Mayor Suzak, I would keep to the plan where we're going if we're aiming for that 9.5. I know we sent out that presentation of where we were and what that 9.5 would cover for the elementary schools. Just going to reiterate that 9.5 is only going to handle elementary schools and not in their entirety. That would be for Enfield Street School, would not be completed in its entirety with that 9.5 because of the number would push us over closer to 11. And I know there was that magic number. So I think when we address it, I think Key would be trying to secure that state funding that we get on the rebates or whatever, trying to move that big push forward. And then on a CIP side, probably looking to push the PD's roof as those shingles are beyond end of life. And I don't see any kind of repair or life extending procedure that I could do that would be worth the effort. There's some roofs where it'd be applicable. I think the PD shingles just need to be replaced. And,
and that roof is under the referendum limit anyway.
Yes, it is. So you're correct. And, to speak to that, Donna, a lot of the municipal roofs, with the exception of Alcorn and the Annex and DPW over at 40 Moody Road, all fall under the referendum limit at this time. But even a place like the Annex or DPW, we could do smart programming, phasing, and do sections that are under those limits, because some of these roofs have been replaced at different times or in better shape than the others. So there's some magic to work on those, and depending on what goes on, with the facilities master plan and whatnot, we can address that.
Okay. Any questions at this point, Scott?
Yes. So if 9.5 million doesn't fix all of the elementary roofs, is the only exclusion portions of roofs that are still under warranty? Like, because we have to be careful to say, like, hey, for 9.5 million, we're fixing all the elementary roofs, but now we're saying we're not. Is it only because we're not fixing portions of the roof that are still too new to be reimbursed for?
So to address that, you are correct, and I misspoke, and I apologize for that. So we are addressing the roofs at the elementary schools that are approximately 30 years old. Enfield Street School, their roof is a bit newer, and they're right on the cusp at the end of the referendum where it's going to hit that magical state reimbursement mark. So at this time, it's only going to address the older sections. So like Hazardville, Memorial, the additions that were put on in the early O's, if that's what we're calling that part of the decade, They are not included in that 9.5. And I believe in the slide packet that I sent out, it showed what we could do with that reimbursement money. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip. I believe it was like 6.4, 6.5 potential reimbursement from the state.
Mhm.
And I think, DPW's recommendation, and from my point, would be if we were to advertise that, would be to reinvest that money into the roofs. So, because those roofs are going to come to that 20-year mark at the end of the referendum. So, we would just, instead of coming back to this at a later point, just take that reimbursement money and just get them all done. That would be only if that part was engaged. Now, if that money went back to go pay down, the bonding or how that worked out, that would not be included. So I think the pivotal point is how we would want to spend that reimbursement money. And
Right.
that's
No, I was just asking because in January, or Donna, when you were away last, it was in the fall, right?
Well, I was away in March.
Well, before that, when we first said, let's just put all the roofs together and just pitch the idea of a referendum theoretically. And that was before like the shutdown and everything that's
Before
happened.
COVID.
Yes, it was pre,
BC.
right. So, and since COVID, we know that we're in a different spot financially. So I don't want to say with this 9.5, it fixes everything if it doesn't. But if we can at least say with this 9.5, it fixes everything that needs to be fixed, except for those things that are no longer under warranty. I just need to figure out like, how are we saying that?
Well, I guess, I had this under new business, but when you go before the council and we send this package that Jeff's been working on, that we've been supporting and we are aware of, we could send the 9.5 and 11.2, if I'm remembering your numbers right, Jeff. And 9.5 does all roofs today that are not under warranty. And the 11.2 does all roofs at the end of that referendum time frame, because those will be in the 30-year time slot, does all roofs. And that gives the council an option. They could decide that, they would want to be more aggressive and go with the 11.2. I always find that, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Open for discussion.
So Donna, this is Chris. I do know that you can word the referendum language with bond council to say that if you were going to move forward with the 9 million, which covers everything right now, and if there's only the one school that remains not fixed, you can word the resolution to state that the reimbursement money can then be applied to the town share of the remaining roof. So you could take the 6.1 million of reimbursement and apply that to the 30%, which would be the town share of the last roof building, and use that as a carryover. So you don't have to present an $11 million referendum. You can present the $9 million referendum and say, at the end of the day, your reimbursement's going to be 6.1 million less the 30% of the final roof.
Okay.
And you would have to, obviously, you'd have to do the math to get those numbers exact, but you can
And you
word.
gotta get the support of the council for that as well.
Right,
That's, yeah.
Right, because you're still getting the reimbursement. You're just applying that reimbursement to that final project because of the age and the timing of everything.
Right, the timing, okay. Okay, thanks, Chris. That's another, because I know when we did the elementary schools, there was money left in the referendum, but the people had to vote again. And in that referendum, we were using the money for the fields.
Right, you have to reallocate it unless it's specifically allocated in the original referendum question.
Okay, all right. Any more questions, comments, or
I have a
information?
question. It's
Go
Marie.
ahead.
Okay, so I'm just sitting here doing some numbers in my head and I'm not a mathematician. But 9.2 million is gonna get us back 6.5, which we're saying we would put back into the Enfield Street roof, okay, right? Right, am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Jeff?
So the referendum was 9.5. I believe the last segment was a very small budget for like miscellaneous roofing repairs.
Okay, But-
And again, that'd be something when we go to it, but traditionally, I think we've been getting about 70% reimbursement on eligible costs. So if we just use that 70% number, I think it was 6.4. That
Okay,
6.4
so-
would then complete all the elementary schools for sure. I'm looking up the cost so I can have the latest and greatest for each section for you.
so I'm just doing some quick math. So if we went for the 11.2, that would do everything. And at 70%, we're looking at getting about 7.8, right, back? And that could then go back towards the bonding.
So yes, you're right. I believe, and I mean, Chris has been doing this for a little bit. We've had a lot of work back and forth with the state on this, but once those roofs hit their eligible reimbursement phase, I don't really think the funding, and if Chris, if I'm saying this wrong, but I think it's the magic number is the years on that roof, not so much how you're funding it. If the town has their share, those roofs will then be eligible. So I don't think it would behoove us to do any of the roofs that are not eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that.
So that's why I was sticking to those eligible,
Okay.
which is over 20 years. And Enfield Street School is right on that cusp at that time frame. I think I had it pulled out for the 2026, something like that. It's about 5 years out, depending on, those are some of the things we could talk about, planning, staggering. But I'd want to try to word that referendum in a way that would make sense, especially if a job comes under budget. I wouldn't want to, I'm not sure how we'd have to word it in bond council, but if a project comes under budget, I would like to, put it towards that remaining roof and just keep building onto it. So if we do really good at one school and we have a couple extra dollars, and I'm not sure how we would word that, I'm sure we could work with Chris and bond council to get that done, but keep applying to get those eligible roofs done at the elementary schools for sure. But yeah, I wouldn't execute anything under.
Right.
Okay, Tim?
Just have a question. Are we being a bit optimistic on that 70% reimbursement? Because that can change every year in June if we don't get it by that before June. And the state, with everything that's going on, I'm hard pressed to think that we're going to get 70%. Hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, isn't that based basically on our demographics?
Yes, it is based on the demographics. It is subject to change every year. Every July 1, you could get a new reimbursement rate. However, I don't. If it does change, it's likely to change 1% or 2%. I don't see it taking a 5 or 10 or even anything bigger than that swing downward without having a major change in the town demographics.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is status quo right now. You've been 70% for quite some time. There's nothing in town that would suggest a radical change in that number to go down. So my guess is you're probably safe through this next 5-year period. Again, within 1% or 2%. One, it may go down to 68, maybe, but.
So Chris, we'll know that number July 1, you said, July 1 annually?
Yeah.
Yes, July 1.
Yeah, so we'll know that in a week.
That's fine.
Right.
I don't mean to be negative. It's a question mark. That's all.
Well,
I
you know
actually
what?
think it went up. I think it went up this year. I think it's.
They're still building a lot of schools and doing a lot of school repairs.
Yeah, no, I think it went up 0.5% this year from what it was last year, actually.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
have to double check that, but I think it did go up.
It's always a concern, even though it's they still have to allocate the money. Agree with you, Tim. It's something we have to be, cognizant of. Any more questions, concerns, comments? Okay, energy performance contract. Jeff?
So the report is due out June 30th, 2020. So they have 5 days to hand me the year 2 annual cost avoidance report. As of April, we entered into our 3rd year of the M&V contract, and our prices go up every year for that. And I'm interested if the committee still feels like the M&V is worth it, especially with some of the new programs that the committee would like to look into. That could free up some. It's not in capital at this moment. It comes out of our expense accounts as a continual year-on investment, but it's a 15-year term. And I was reading the contract, and it looks like there's no penalty to cancel at any time we choose.
There is not.
Thread.
There isn't. I actually spoke to Chris about this.
So, I mean, everything that the M&V is doing, they do a lot of the projections based on looking at the bills, and then, I don't want to call it speculation. There's a word that I can't articulate, but they look at, what you've done, and they kind of look at the therms. It's not, there's more accurate ways to calculate energy consumption and savings. But a lot of those tools we're already doing in-house, where we keep a running tally on the usage and the bills. We have them in Excel sheets already in the office. I know someone was requesting about, energy use over the March, April, May period, and I was able.
Yeah, sorry, it was me, Jeff.
Oh, that's fine. I was able to get it in about, 15, 20 minutes, because I have,
Okay.
I track all that information. So it's kind of redundant. That part of it, I mean, they come out, they do a visual. There's things I think we could do inside to make sure that these activities are still being done and performed. But I know there's a big push for a lot of this, investigation into solar roofing, and looking into studies, and it would free up money to bring on a consultant or do some exploratory work. And I just wanted to propose that to the committee as something to think about.
I actually asked if it could go into our kitty for the transfer station. It's $47,000 from what I read in the budget, if I'm not reading.
I'm sorry, I
reading?
didn't step over you. It goes up. It's $50,499 this year.
Okay, because I read it right. I thought it was the 47 in the budget. So I don't know. I'm in favor of not having the redundancy at this point. I feel after 2 years of everything being analyzed that it's time that we put that money to something better. And on that, is everybody familiar with that?
Yep.
No, I'm not.
Monitoring and verification is what it stands for.
Right. So what it is that Honeywell tells us how many units of energy we saved, and we're guaranteed so many energy units to be saved if we do everything exactly the way we're supposed to do it. And at the end, if they have saved those units of energy, then they have fulfilled their side of the contract. Stop me if I'm wrong, Melissa, and I'm going to keep going on this.
Yeah,
And then
no,
we have-
I try not to be an interrupter, but I will respond when you're done.
Okay, there is a third party that we hired that does a qualifying test to make sure that Honeywell is indeed saving us the proper units of energy that would garnish the savings in our utility bills. And now I'll turn it over to Melissa for more detailed explanation.
Well, not necessarily, but just that at the beginning of the contract, there was an awful lot of skepticism, and other towns that had worked with Honeywell kind of whispered in our ear to be extra vigilant, because this is the sort of pressure point for making the whole thing work. I'm wide open to seeing the money reallocated, but I would like, before we firm that up, to just sort of have Jeff bring us like a simple qualitative report, not a ton of data, but just like what has been happening with, what if any data, the separate M&V brought us that we didn't know already. Just any pros and cons type of thoughts.
Well, I think it did, my reason for pushing for this is, with the COVID and the buildings being shut down, which is why I asked for the energy, for lack of a better term, an energy audit of what we were doing, is because the energy unit consumption savings is dependent on use of buildings. So obviously if you don't use your building and you're not heating it to the temperature that, it just to me seemed like at this point, if we were comfortable with the 2 years, why are we spending $50,000 to do something that we probably don't need? And for me, I wanted money for the transfer station because
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally into that. I'm just, if we could have some kind of like a little summary report, simple, it could be very simple, of what we've learned and, why we're confident that we can monitor internally, just to sort of make the decision really well. I'd be happy to say yes.
Okay. Any
So-
more comments, questions, or concerns? I don't see any hands up or anything. Gina, you're the other council member here with me. I don't see Charlotte or.
No, I actually tried to make a comment before. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you
Oh,
now.
I tried to make a comment before on the referendum, and then, so this program has kicked me out twice. I don't know if it's trying to shut me up.
Well,
Maybe
that's
I'll
right.
go
We
in.
got the referendum coming up again in new business, so we'll call
No,
on you
I'll go,
first.
I'll do that. I don't have any comments about this right now, though.
Okay, are you in favor of something like that?
I'm on the fence. I have to be honest. I'm not quite sure what the best way to go is. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion
Because
about just this one subject.
Okay,
I have
all
a
right.
strong opinion about a lot of things.
Okay, but not about that. All right. Then E is on the table from May 28th and clean energy path to solar. Melissa? You have any updates or anything you want to share with us, Melissa?
Well, yeah, Tim and I spoke a little bit after the last meeting. We had talked, I had asked the question, how do you guys feel about a ton of information that I shared? And he raised a question. The Green Bank power purchase option has some limitations to it that he wanted to learn more about. And in follow-up conversation, we really started thinking that while Kasha and town staff are bringing the Green Bank to, present to the council, that's one path. But we as a committee might want to, develop more of a briefing that's about the options for buying or power purchase agreements, so that it's a balanced presentation. I know that the council gets pitched all the time, but this is really different from pitching. I think if we want to consider our options, now is the time. I think it's, integrating those options into the facilities plan makes sense to me. I think it needs a longer conversation than we can have on this agenda and a little bit of like teeing it up. And, Tim and I, just speaking informally, were thinking that it might make sense to have the clean energy subcommittee, such as it is, plus a few others of you, discuss, how to approach renewables offline and bring a proposal like to the next meeting and have a little more time to really chew on it.
Okay.
Does that begin to capture?
I think that's what actually has to happen, is we have to have a little, not a formal subcommittee, but some of our members get together that are interested in the solar and kind of bring some more stuff forward and educate us.
Yeah, I mean, we have a clean energy subcommittee that's just sitting there. It's just me.
Right.
So like, we'll get the lead out and facilitate. Who would be interested in being part of that conversation?
Tim,
With
what?
Tim and Donna.
Yeah, I guess I could, Melissa, yes. No other takers? I think that's plenty. And you got Jaime also. He's not here. I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, I'm texting with him and we're trying to figure out which list he wasn't on. So Walter. and
Oh, he
Deb
might
are
not be on Deb's list.
Yeah, so we're gonna make super sure.
Okay, because I put him specifically on the list because he did get the agenda, right?
He said he didn't, but in any event, we'll loop him in. I've texted him that this is happening and that we
Right,
want him to
I
come
did,
today.
his email is on my end, so he should have gotten the initial agenda that didn't have the YouTube link, I think. I'm not sure. Yes, because I think that went out as an invite.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay,
but
we
in
gotta
any
get Deb
event,
to get him in
yeah,
that.
so that'll be a 4-person subcommittee. We'll look at purchase versus lease. We'll look at towns that have had experience with different options. You know, we don't need to have a Zoom with Woodstock, Connecticut, but we might have a socially distanced field trip and we can talk to Coventry because they've got a bunch of Green Bank projects.
You can go down to East Windsor and see the new,
That's right.
I mean, that one's really close. I mean,
Yeah,
and you can also go down and see the one off of, what is it, Powder Ridge Road, where the sand pit, gravel pit was. So go down Abbey, go down past Collins Creamery. And I think geez, I'm trying to think who owned the property. They still own it, they've leased. And that one's a virtual net metering. Am I
Yep.
saying that right, Melissa?
Yep, you are.
Okay. And we could all go visit the one right in Enfield. That
Yep, I
one's-
mean, the point is not so much visually just like taking in the panels as it is talking with the owners about the revenue model, how they, the sort of due diligence that they did, those kinds of things. But maybe we could plan for a little more time for this agenda item on a regular basis. And I will bring our little subcommittee together shortly.
Okay.
Great, go team.
Great, thank you. H, the communication, Scott, you have anything?
Nothing specific, just we forward a lot of the communications that we get from the town manager, and then anything appropriate that we see coming from any of you guys. So once we have a plan for roofs, one number versus the other and things of that nature, we'll have more to share. We are utilizing the platform mostly for sharing what the town manager has been putting out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, new business. Okay, item A, we're not ready for. I just put it on there because which is easier to put it on than if we were further along and I would have to add it.
Donna, can I say something?
Sure.
I guess we have a guest. Who's on the iPhone? It was asked who was on the iPhone square.
Doug is.
Doug
Oh.
is.
So there's another iPhone square.
One next to Doug's that just says iPhone. I don't know who that is.
Oh, I don't know.
That's me, Jaime.
Oh, Jaime. Okay.
Oh,
There we
Jaime,
go.
you're on.
All right. Thank you. And we'll work on making sure the link gets to you. So,
Right.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
all right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Donna.
All right, B, we can continue with the conversation of the roof referendum. What do we want brought to the council? Because I have leadership on Wednesday. We'll ask to discuss, because remember, we only have one meeting in July, one meeting in August, and we have to have a public hearing and a vote before the first week of September on going to referendum. So again, we're kind of under a time crunch due to the COVID. So I guess we've had a little bit of discussion, but Gina, you got boxed out, so let's hear you first.
That's okay. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. I'm a little concerned if we try to sell this or promote this as, hey, vote yes on this referendum, we're only fixing school roofs. Because I think there's a large demographic in Enfield who care more about just school roofs. I think that's going to appeal to a certain group of people, but I also think that's going to turn it off. I don't know if I am in favor of only putting on school roofs on this referendum. I think saying we're going to do school roofs and then using the savings to do town roofs is a little risky. I wish I had the Excel spreadsheet, I think, Jeff, that you had at one point that showed us all the roofs and their condition and sort of what was extreme need and what was really not needed. But I think we need to think long and hard about what roofs we want to include. And I don't know that just selling school roofs is going to work. I really don't. I think you have a large portion of Enfield that's not going to go for that. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, any more comments?
I'm going
Marie.
to, it's Marie. I'm going to echo what Gina just said. The roofs are in bad shape, and I think we need to come up with a figure and bring a referendum in there and let the people decide that all of these roofs need to be done. And that was my question before that I was trying to get at. If we're going to if we go with the larger referendum number and we get more money back, I would like to see some of that put back into it to bring down the bonding. So I would like to see us do a whole package. I think if we're going to do this, we need to do a whole package. We need to tell people up front what is going to come back and how it's going to be spent and what the tax implication is going to be. But that's my opinion.
Okay, Tim?
Question, Marie, what do you include in the whole package? Is it more than roofs? Is it windows? Is it?
No, but I agree with Gina where we have the library, we have the police station, we're looking at the Jablonski. I mean, I think we have to put together a comprehensive package of the buildings that need the roofs that need to be done.
I don't disagree with you in terms of that, but there's not enough time to put that together. And that's it.
But we had that. We had the Excel spreadsheet. We had what roofs were going to have to be done.
The roofs we have.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're just dealing with roofs. I was asking whether you were going further.
Yeah, roofs, but all the buildings, not just the schools.
Comment. I can shed some light on this. During the beginning of the year, probably November-ish, we discussed this about going to referendum for $15 million. That would be the key number that you're looking at. Is that 15 million round number. To do all the roofs in town, I'd have to update with escalation costs, but you're around $22 million. That's for everything, the good, the bad, and the really bad. Some roofs don't need to be acted on right now. Town hall needs some repairs. So that $15 million covered a lion's share, and I believe I have that presentation. I can send that $15 million and an Excel spreadsheet of all the roofs in their current conditions of the 27 locations.
But what would the reimbursement be back? I think we need to see what the reimbursement, because not all of those roofs will be reimbursed, correct?
The reimbursement, I have the reimbursement tabulation for all the eligible roofs.
The reimbursement would only apply to the school building. That's
Correct.
it.
I believe that.
So you have to remember, Alcorn and the annex are no longer school buildings and no longer get reimbursed.
Right. So if the number is 15 million, but the school buildings within that 15 million is 9 million, and we get reimbursed 70% on the 9 million, does whatever that number equal 20 million to fix everything?
Right. That's what I'm trying to get at is.
Right, but we're gonna have to think about, and I think Chris mentioned this at some point, but we would have to talk to bond counsel about what that referendum question would look like, because I think you're gonna run into some issues there on being able to say you're going to take the reimbursement on a bond and put it to future projects or whatever that wording is. That's not my forte, but I don't know if we're going to run into a problem with that.
You know,
I
the-
don't like the $22 million. I don't. I
Right,
don't
the
like
referendums always contain two numbers. They contain what the full projects are gonna cost and what the town is eligible to spend. And I think that that people need to be able to see the difference in those two numbers. So if it's say 15 million, you need to ask for a referendum to spend 15 million, but you're gonna get 7 back or whatever, then the town is only going to be spending or bonding 8 million.
Right.
That's only if you're not going to reinvest that reimbursement.
Right, and I think when we start reinvesting the reimbursement, that's when we're gonna lose the people.
That's
I
right.
think we're better off giving them a little bit bigger number
Yes.
and then
Yes.
and then taking the reimbursement out so they see a differential
Yes.
between what they're spending and what the projects are worth.
Right.
But along
I
those
think-
lines, if the referendum were 15 million, then the town would be bonding the full 15 million to get whatever $21 million worth of work completed.
Right, but we can
You're
repay
saying
that
the
early.
same thing.
I'm saying the same thing, but I think I'm saying it in a different way.
Right.
Right, but if we repay that early, we can repay that early and then, we're in a better financial situation. And I think we repay bonds early all the time. I
Right.
think that's just something that we do. I think in general, we need to be somewhere between, I don't like that $9 million number. I think a lot of people will like it, but I don't think it's going to be sellable enough where people are going to think we're going to do enough roofs to do a referendum. But I don't like 22. I think that's
Yeah.
way too high.
Way too high.
I think
Right.
we need to rest somewhere in the middle and find a place that is going to appease the majority of the masses, which is school and town roofs, but be able to use some of that reimbursement to both reinvest in the roofs and pay down the bond, if that makes sense.
So that
Yep.
then that's the $11 million. The $11 million for the school roofs would give you 8.6 million in reimbursement, which would get you up to $21-ish million total spending,
Okay.
which you could then reinvest in other town projects, and at that point decide what you're going to do with that 8.5. Maybe you take half of it and you only use 4 million for other town buildings.
Can I just say, as a
Yeah,
taxpayer,
Wendy?
I don't think I'm approving anything unless I see what the overall, and I'm gonna call it a 30-year plan, but what is our plan for roofs? We're in a bind right now because we have so many school roofs that need to get done yesterday. Be our approach going forward. What is our plan for doing roofs for the rest of our lives and the people after us? Because that could answer the question of how much do we really need to go in for? Because it seems to me the town should be somehow setting aside a certain amount of money, whether it's in sinking funds or whatever, for most roofs. And we can't go out to, I don't think we should be going out to referendum for roofs every 5 years like we have been for roads. Roads are different to me. But until I know what the plan is for after these 5 years and this 9 million, I'm not ready to sign off on the 9 or 15 or 22, because it's not clear to me what our strategy is for handling, because we know roofs have to be done approximately every 30 years. What is our strategy? What is the plan or the goal to fund roofs once we get over this hurdle?
That's a great question. So that's something I've been working on, and I do have a plan. It's about a 17-year roof strategy, and then it would be rinse and repeat. Depending on the facility, on the type of roof, the systems go anywhere from 20 to 30 years. Shingles have the shortest lifespan. That pretty much takes care of all the municipal facilities. The lay down flat roofs, especially some of the older, really, heavier systems, they're a long life system. So again, 30 years on that kind of roof system is pretty average in, the New England area. So what it really comes down to is it depends on, I have a plan going forward with a referendum, without a referendum, and then I put it into my capital that gets reviewed by my director. And then once my director signs off, it goes to town manager. So I actually have a 10-year rolling capital management plan that does everything. And we keep track of that. I know not everybody gets to see that behind the scenes work, but there is a strategy, because what I'm trying to do is we need to kind of stop the water coming into the Titanic a little bit, because your big outliers in the next few years are going to be the high school. And then as soon as we're done putting the roof on the high school, this new JFK is going to come due. And going into the future, you're about a $7.5, $10 million roof. And it's going to take us, depending on how we invest, at $250,000 a year. It's going to take 15 years of savings to get ready for that replacement. And those are only the other roofs, not even talking about the annex. So realistically, you'd have to ask for pre-referendum savings every single year to keep on top of your roofs. And we haven't even talked about other infrastructure. So I think with the BL study, my suggestion is to a real long, hard think about, overall property investment and where you want to spend your dollars, because it's a very large number, about $144 million for everything that we're existing now. Just rough. I have the information, but it's a very large number. I think there was an SBC facilities asset report that kind of mirrored what I'm saying right now. But it's not a small process, but without understanding how the committee would like to proceed and see the future. I have ideas and plans that I kind of see, and I'm using the committee to kind of bounce these things off to see how it sticks, I guess, if you will. Kind of give you guys ideas and thoughts, but it's a very large number. And in this study, I'm hinging a lot of my movement forward on this BL master plan and how the committee wants to go, because it's not a small, it's not a stomachable figure. We would blow it's all the money that you've spent in roads in the last 25 years to get us to where we need to be.
Okay, so I'm hearing, I guess, three different things. I'm hearing that there's a 9 million that only does school roofs. I'm hearing that there's an 11 point something million that does school roofs, and some of the reimbursement is used for town. And I'm hearing that if I tell everybody in the town, I'm going to do $21 million worth of roofs, but only spend $11 million of town money, then I'm going to do most of the roofs that need to be done. Is that?
I would push for the $15 million, Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
And that was the initial, I think that's the best bang for the buck with the facilities that I see that are going to be longstanding in the community. A lot of these buildings, especially with like the dog pound, the animal shelter, with any kind of future expansion at the Jablonski, if that goes forward, it's going to move to a different area. But the 15 million, and I have that presentation. I'll send.
It'll need a new roof by the time that happens.
That's so small, we can do that with buildings and grounds.
I'll come down and roof that one for you.
I'd be happy to see people for once. That'd be nice.
Okay, so we want to go ahead, Bethany.
I just had a question, because a lot of these numbers we're throwing around, some of them are using the reimbursement and some of them are not, depending on how we want to sell it. So It's getting a little convoluted. Jeff's 15 million seems reasonable, but I want to just be clear, is that not using reimbursement and letting the town people know, okay, this is what we're bonding, but this is what we're going to get back for reimbursement?
You would be bonding $15 million with a potential of 5.4 million in reimbursement rather. But this is $15 million referendum, nothing to do with any kind of rebates that we would get. And this would tackle schools and the very large municipal roofs that are in need or just beyond our traditional CIP limit
Without reimbursing any of the,
without reimbursing. and this-
without reusing any of the reimbursement.
That's correct. We can
Okay.
use that for other things, paying down debt services
Yep.
or
Donna?
Yep. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. You know, just in the past, from my experience with different, referendums and stuff, bond council has never let us take the reimbursement and earmark it for a project in that referendum. Unless they've changed that now, but in the past, that's never happened.
I have not seen that happen either, Doug. I don't know if anybody else has through the years. I don't recall.
Nope.
That's why I keep saying that we need to say, that the project is what it is without the reimbursement. The reimbursement is, it's just like the JFK. We put out a referendum for $84 million. That's what the people voted on. They voted on $84 million. Our portions that in the end will be like 28 million. And they know that as well, but they still know
So
the whole
you can't
project.
you can't take the $60 million and do other projects with it.
Right.
Correct.
That's
Right, because we
kind of
gotta
along the
tell
same line.
how much money we're actually gonna spend. I think we,
Right, because the theory was always it has to go back into the general fund technically, and then it could get reallocated through, the process, but it
Right.
can't be part of that referendum.
No, that, like if you did a roof and the money that came back from the state, the reimbursement, that could be used that could go to the general fund and then go do another roof. But we
Correct.
I don't think we can put that in the referendum.
Yeah, in the past, we haven't been able to unless,
Right.
bond council has now changed their way.
Yeah, they're never very kind.
No.
So that's my fear, is we have to have this in a way that, and also the simpler it is, the better it is. Because, everybody abhors complexity. You can't follow the chain. This is why, Melissa, this is why we had so much trouble passing the performance contract. Everybody kept saying to us, this is too good to be true, right? Took us 3 shots. There were people that told us that not to do it. Don't do it again. You've already been
Donna,
shot down twice.
Also, traditionally, the referendum numbers is kind of like a number pulled out of the sky, just like the high school. The high school, was $104 million. The original numbers came in higher than that. So you take the number that council's comfortable with selling, and that's what you got to do to make it work,
Right. Right. The high school referendum, Enfield High School, that referendum contained no FF&E. Through having good bids come in, we were able to fund the FF&E and do other things. That's not true of the JFK. JFK is a fully funded, it's got everything, soup to nuts in that referendum. So it's a little bit different. And I think the roofing one we need to have it really simple, but I agree with Gina. It's got to have some town roofs, even though they don't need to go to referendum. They don't even need to be bonded. They could, this doesn't say you have to bond money. This says that you can spend this money on this project. And that's what I think we're kind of missing in our explanation of what we're doing. We
And
don't
we have the
necessarily.
option to bond.
Hmm?
We have the option to bond. If
We have the option to bond or spend it through our general revenue stream, right? It's just that it's over the referendum limit for a particular project. And that's what we keep stumbling on. So I want to bring, I want this to go to referendum. but I want it to be the best referendum that we have the possibility of passing. So I'm going to open it up to more discussion.
Donna, has anything ever been talked about to any of the other council members not on the committee and what they're comfortable at? Because really, that's kind of where it's
And
going
we
to
argue about it all the time. Thank you very much.
So what's the council's comfort level?
0.
Right now, there's a lot of people that are just, they're, you know, and this is why I get frustrated, because we have 38-year-old roofs. These roofs should have been done 8 years ago. And we're sitting here now, and now we have a pandemic, and now we have all these things that are clouding the fact that roofs are a critical component to a building. And I got people that are afraid to spend a nickel. And Gina's agreeing, you know, and I think it's not just on my side. I think it's on both sides. Oh, you got spenders? Maybe yes, maybe no.
I think our pockets are a little more open.
Well, you know,
it stinks. We need to find a good number. We need to find a palatable number for both the council to give its their blessing, and for the majority of what number we think, and we're all taxpayers in this town, what number would we be okay with? I mean, I think 15 is even just scary. I don't know. It sounds silly. You know, when people don't put their house on the market for like 200,000, they put it on for 199, 950. You know what I mean? It sounds silly, but there's a psychology to it. So I think not only do we need to think logically, we need to think, what would I do? What's going to reel me in? Because let's be honest, you're going to have half of the people who aren't even going to read our literature on it and our information on it, and they're just going to see it for the first time at the polls. So you need to figure out what's a number that's good for them. And then you need to figure, all right, people who are educated and learn about these things and pay attention and read the literature, they're going to be more okay with that number. I don't know what that number is. If I had to guess, it would be $14.5 million. I don't know. Sounds better than 15. I have no real backing for that number, though. It's just in between 10 and 20.
But less than 15.
And less than 15, which sounds silly, but the psychology of that number means something.
But 15 gets us $21 million worth of work. So we need to know that too, so we can say.
But what Doug and I are saying is we don't think that you can frame that within the referendum. We've never seen it before.
I don't think you can. I think you have to give a number.
If we can't, then we have to figure out how to do that, because I get JFK, it's an $87 million price tag, but our bill is 27, and people see the difference. So if we reframe roofs to that same equation, I don't know how we sell that on June 25th, 2020 versus when this was proposed pre-COVID. So
yes, I'm pretty sure from the performance contract referendum that there was a really stringent rule about just putting in the referendum language the literal proposition to be voted for with absolutely nothing extraneous.
It is.
But I do think that for those that do read in our messaging, we can compare it to all kinds of things that will show that it's in proportion to the value that we're bringing with it.
Right.
No,
I
I
think
agree,
you
but,
need
like,
to. I
the
think you really
roofs are
need to.
falling apart, so we have to figure out a way to pitch that.
Right.
Right. So I think in our literature, we can be as specific as we want, and we can put all of this information in there and what we're going to do with the reimbursement, or what our ideas or our options for reimbursement and what we can do with it. But I think we need to come up with an ultimate number that it's going to be okay for a bond for the referendum question, which bond council just these referendum questions are terrible. And I say it
Yeah.
every single time bond council comes up, I tell them they're terrible. But there's nothing we can do about that. So we just need to come up with a number, and then that's gonna appease the people who aren't gonna do any research and aren't gonna learn about what this question is about before the polls. And then we sell everything else we can in the literature prior.
And so what's the number?
14 and a half.
I'll second
good.
that.
Brilliant.
I'm
Marie,
okay.
you have to stop, but you really need to
Well, I don't know. I think 14. All right, then let's do 16.5, Gina.
No,
How does 16.5
you
sound?
keep agreeing with me, Marie. So I'm gonna get a complex here.
I like going with the 5. So let's either, if we go, it will go 14.5 or 16.5. Well,
So, I mean, I looked at
Like,
50
this is like the Price is Right right now.
that is, it is, Chris.
It is. It is.
After
And
Chris, Bethany.
Bethany has a comment, and I'm just gonna say before I shut up for the rest of the thing, Bethany has a comment, but I would love 14.5 million, but we have to have those numbers add up to 14.5 in our literature, or 14.5.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so if it adds up to 15, telling people 14.5 is ridiculous. Now,
Bethany,
That was my problem with 9.5, because 9.5 doesn't fix what we need to fix. So we can't say 9.5 if that doesn't fix everything.
Bethany,
Jeff, I'm just curious what 15 gets us, because like it kind of where everyone else is going on this.
All
I
right, so-
think you based that number based on the condition and what was actually going to need those full roof repairs within that timeline, and what else could be handled on a year-to-year maintenance basis within the budget. So I'm just curious, are we covering all our needs at 15 million? Because I'm hearing everyone, and we want to make sure that we include a reimbursement amount in there so they can see it, and we feel that that's probably the way the bond council is going to make us word it. But in seeing other referendums, I know a lot of people will react, well, that's never guaranteed, and regardless of what we put in our pamphlets and tell them. So I'm just curious, does that 15 million cover us?
So that $15 million does require a certain amount of strategy that we can change. And I have multiple options. If you had a chance to look at the other presentation, it kind of showed the strategy, the costs. And I had about 5 scenarios of how we could do this. And I don't want to overcomplicate things, but 15 million is a very strong number. And it would require the continuation of Henry Barnard to be through CIP as we're doing. And it does
well,
not.
that will be done. Henry Barnard's going to be done this summer.
It's just that last piece, Deputy Mayor, the gymnasium addition that was done.
Oh,
So
yeah, but that isn't even 20 years. That's only.
no, but with the age of the span of time taking on the project, it's about 11 facilities. So
Yep.
it's going to be a very large project for the town, and depending on how we bond and how many rooms we do at once, to do a 5-year referendum, if that's the magic number in time,
I think so.
I think 15, we could whittle it down, but there's a few big outliers on how we want to approach. And I think the biggest elephant in the room on a municipal side is the annex. That's about a 3.9. So if we eliminate that, you're at about that number Gina was talking about, 11.5 without the annex. And we still get some municipal roofs, some very high hitting municipal roofs like EPD, DPW, senior center, things like that. So I think what would help the committee is, I haven't updated the price escalations for this year on my master Excel sheet, but it shows 27 roofs, their conditions, their sizes, and the 2019 prices and anticipated reimbursements if it's eligible. And I think if there's some certain facilities that you'd want to, me to think about to make that number, to help it, knowing the community, trying to make it, as equitable as possible would help me. I think that might be something helpful for me too, because I want to give you guys the best information I can give you, so this referendum has the best chance. And I have a lot of information and data on this. And if you want to talk about windows, I got a whole bunch about windows. I got about boilers. We can do it.
No,
whatever
I
you
want to talk about windows.
I'm trying. But I think getting these last couple presentations, because they're kind of like in can, ready to go, few adjustments. But then I think what would help you is to individually see that spreadsheet of these town locations to kind of get an idea of what I'm looking at. And I can share with you my plans of how I anticipated to, go forward. I don't know how you'd want to put that in the literature, but our continuation plan is very dependent on adequate funding. Extremely, just because of these large facilities. I ran the numbers. It's pretty much pre-referendum funding for roofs in the future, but I'll share that with you. I think it's a little much to see and talk about right now. I think just kind of reviewing the data and I think picking the roofs for me to tackle to make that number work is gonna help me, and it'll help the committee. And like I said, I'll give whatever you want. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready. So,
Hey,
Tim?
Donna, what's
Tim?
our time schedule, Donna? Oh,
Can I answer Doug first, Tim, and then I'll turn the floor over to you?
Sure.
yeah,
We
what's our
have to
time
have
schedule?
we have to have approval of the council and a public hearing by the beginning of first week of September in order to make a referendum. So we're on a tight time schedule. Tim?
Right.
You stole my,
Sorry.
you stole my thunder there. We have an incredibly tight time schedule and only a very few meetings to get through this summer. So there has to be a drop dead date for when we set this number. 14, 5, 15, 20, whatever that number is, and it's defensible, and it has to cover both the town and the school stuff. There's not even a question there.
Right,
It has to be
and I
as
think
simple as
that's
possible.
right. I think sometimes we're worried too much. I know we're worried about the high school roof, and we're worried about all these other big roofs, but we have buildings that we are in full utilization that have roofs that are almost 40 years old. We have to narrow down to say, nobody can predict 30 years from now. And I think that we can't get caught in that. We have got to get a nice solid 5-year plan. And I'll be honest with you, I'd prefer a 3-year plan, where in that 3-year plan, I could tell the people that we would do every roof that's over 35 years old. All our large roofs that we cannot do through our regular budget. I think that that's what we have to hone down on. And we've got to be tight and concise about this. This is not the time for a plan that's for lack of a better, too big. We have to focus down on, we have a really big problem with those roofs. I don't think 40-year-old roofs are a good thing on schools. And I don't know, Tom, you may like 40-year-old roofs, but I don't. And I just feel like we're looking for trouble.
No, I mean, 40 years is, you're lucky if you've got a roof that isn't leaking.
Yeah, that's right.
You are,
We should-
judging from the age of these roofs, you are close to living on borrowed time if you're not already there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the
Donna,
thing. And, and I
Donna,
know,
can you go-
Gina, it's nice to have school roofs and a blend. But the thing is, we can do most of our regular roofs without going to referendum. And people kind of need to understand the difference between those two things. As it might take educating on that. And I don't know, for me, I get really aggravated at when our constituents don't understand the importance of education in this town. And they say, right?
I get it, but the flaw in your reasoning and logic is the fact that it's reasoning and logic, and that people are going to be educated about it, because unfortunately they're not. Part of the residents and part of the voters, they're just not going to educate themselves on it. And I wish that wasn't the case. And I did say I was going to shut up because I really think Bethany's still talking, wants to talk.
Okay, Bethany, go ahead. No,
Good.
Bethany needs to talk now.
I'm good.
But
I will
Marie's going to
say-
talk for her.
No, I will say, if you if you want the seniors vote, you better put in the senior center.
Mhm.
Well, maybe we do schools and just the senior center.
I'm just saying,
actually-
but I don't think you can do that. I think it's gotta be a town effort. I think it's gotta be all the town buildings. If you want everybody on board, because you've got people that are gonna say, the schools, we put a lot of money in, blah, 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 but you put the senior center in there and you put a couple of town buildings, and I think the residents are gonna come out and vote for it a lot easier.
Okay.
Okay.
I have an offer, and that is, it might help to try to come up with a narrative that kind of says, we have all this deferred maintenance. We have a joint facilities committee that is really working hard for you to figure out how to save you money and solve these problems. We're looking at all these buildings and we name all of them and we talk about how much we understand all of them. And we say something like, we're coming up with a financial strategy to be able to pay for these town ones this way, pay for these others with a referendum, and get it all done. And that, it may be, I would be willing to like draft something that just kind of gets a storyline that we could, play with from the different perspectives that you're bringing up.
But I think you're already on step 2, Melissa. I think you guys are missing step 1. Step 1 is trying to come up with a number that's going to go on the referendum that's going to be okay for people who aren't going to read the narrative. The
Yeah, no, I'm
narrative
not
is
trying to
step 2.
sidestep that. I'm thinking they could be parallel, or at least
Right, but you're talking about a very small portion of the residents that are going to educate themselves on this issue.
You
And
know
I'm not
what?
trying to be cynical.
Right.
I'm not trying to be rude. I don't want to be
No, I
painted
hear
as the
you.
person who doesn't believe that the residents are educated, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to come up with something that's going to do a chunk of roofs that is going to be very simple and straightforward, because this referendum question is going to be, do you approve the town spending $15 million to do, 16 roofs at Enfield? And it's not going to say what it includes, with a reimbursement rate of 70.
Oh, it is. It has to say what roofs, Gina.
I don't know that it does.
It
Yes,
says
it
municipal
does.
and school.
It does, just
It
like the
does.
roads.
It has to be specific. Yep.
Yeah, it has to be specific.
Okay, well then I think I don't know.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
it has-
I
it
think
has
you
to
need
be
a mixture of roofs. I
how
think you
can we
need
get
pull
to
in
the number?
people- I think you need to pull in the people who want public safety. So if the police department needs to be done, you pull in the police department.
Yeah, for
I
public
think if
safety.
the senior
and,
needs to be done, pull in the senior center.
It does.
I don't want to make this political, but it's political if you
Oh,
want
yeah.
it passed.
It is
Right.
political.
But the senior center roof isn't 20 years old. Jeff, do you
Well,
have
if it
any?
doesn't need to be done, don't put it in. I'm saying I don't have that list. that
Well,
we
it
were
does at the
given.
end, at the end of the
The only-
5 years.
The only requirement for the 20 years is for the school projects for the reimbursement. You don't,
You know what, Chris, I don't want to do any other roofs. I'm not doing any roofs before their time.
okay. No, and I'm not
Yeah,
not saying that.
I know.
Just don't get hung up on the
No,
20
I'm
the
not.
20
I'm
years
hung up
for-
on the fact that, they put a metal roof on that building, and metal roofs generally are a 50-year roof. I'm not getting 50 years out of that roof. So I don't know why that is.
Oh.
Now, I've been told by people there's other metal roofs that aren't rated for 50 years.
No,
I don't know. I'm not an expert on roofing materials.
that standing seam has exposed fasteners that are relying on a neoprene gasket, and that's the failure on the metal itself. And then there's issues with some of the
And I
flat.
got Tom agreeing with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a design issue. They have better systems. Metal roofs are good. There's nothing wrong with them, but it's, picking out the right design, and they've come a long ways from, 2002 when the senior center opened to, now, or 99 when it was planned to build.
Okay.
Again, the senior center roof, things like that. Again, I think what would help the committee, and I'm gonna share the other presentations I have with some mill rate impacts from some stuff that's a little bit older. I did hand over John Wilcox all those questions about budget impact.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Stuff. So I'm waiting back to hear from John, and when I get it, I'll share it with the committee.
Okay.
And I think having that Excel Now, please bear in mind, I have not updated that sheet in its entirety. I've been kind of manipulating a few roofs and their new costs, but it was current to 19 pricing, and we can do some tweaking. But I think I think it'd be something just to see everything, and it'd help the committee kind of, I think seeing is believing sometimes when you have it all in front of you and you can see it on your computer at your leisure, instead of, in a virtual manner like this, or in like an hour and a half meeting, just to kind of think about it, grapple with it. But I think what's key, you're right, is we're going to have to pick some we have to include municipal roofs. That means something to everybody, so it's an equitable thing. And I think that's what I'm getting from the committee. It needs to show equity in a logical sense. And yes, it does approach roof integrity as it's listed in the scenario and the cost breakout, and it prioritizes. And there is a good story. Not all things are bad with roofs in Enfield. We do have good roofs. It's just we only hear about the bad ones, and they kind of like foreshadow the rest of everything else. But we do have good buildings with good roofs that are newer. They're in good shape. So I mean, it's not all dire. So it's not. So I think that seeing that would help, and that could probably help build a narrative, Melissa, that you were kind of inquiring about. And I think these are the key things, because yes, you're right. The time is of the essence. We don't have a lot of time, I believe. September is kind of like the cutoff for everything getting done, and there's a lot there. So it'll help me make it presentable for the folks here at Joint Facilities. And
also, September is the cutoff for this committee being able to raise its voice at all, and for the PAC being formed. And so,
the PAC can't be formed till after the referendum is set.
Right, but I mean, there's a period of time this summer.
The PAC can be formed before the referendum is set.
Okay, I'm not trying to raise a technical question. I'm just saying in terms of overall time, the summer is when we can be getting messaging to the community about the overall,
like the performance contract,
planning and framing the work that's been done, the backstory, and we should be doing that. We should be getting the number firmed up and getting a storyline firmed up. Like if Jeff can even share the data he was talking about in advance of the next meeting that we can be kind of sitting with, I can be figuring out what parts I can draft without the numbers being firm that are just storyline, and we can start getting into agreement on some of it.
How about, Donna?
Yeah.
How about you ask everybody what they think their figure should be? And then we take that, we give it to Jeff, we come to a concise figure tonight. We give that figure to Jeff, and we tell him, Jeff, how many roofs can you get done? What's the reimbursement? And let's see what that number looks like.
Well, because he's got to have actual numbers that match. So I was going to suggest that we tell him that it has to be between 13 and 15, whatever you get an actual blend of roofs.
But we can't pick a palatable number that doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah, I think we need to hear from Jeff about.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if he's saying that 15 is the number, and I kind of agree with Gina that it's a flat number. I think people like a broken number. So if you went 14.5 or 15.5,
if we gave him
15.5, Jeff, is the number, give us how many roofs you can do with that money and what the reimbursement is going to look like.
Yeah, but he already knows what all the roofs cost. Jeff can sit there with the numbers and manipulate to get us something that's around 15.
That's correct.
Okay. That's how you have to do it. You're putting the cart before the horse.
So then maybe we should go around the room and figure out what people's numbers are.
We can go around. You ready? Doug, how much you want to spend on roofs? Or how much do you think the people are willing to spend on roofs? Doug?
Yeah, I think the 15 number somewhere around there is good. Again, once it goes to council, they're going to really pick the number, whether we got logic behind it or not sometimes.
Right.
But I'd say let's go with the 15 and see where it goes.
Bethany?
I'm really stuck on this number because we think 15 is great because we're talking between 9 and 21, 22 million. But when you just throw 15 million out, I really want to see what Jeff has back from John as far as what roofs we get done. Does it fix the problem? And how it affects what we would have to budget to have a good roof plan to move forward to address everything else. Because the more we do on a referendum, it's going to help spread out that expense on maintaining and doing the other roofs that need to get done. So we resolve this problem and have an actual plan. So saying a number now, I think is kind of premature without having that balance of what our number of roofs would be, what would it cost to cover it, and how it affects our annual budgeting going forward.
Right. Okay, so Tim?
I want the problem fixed on the roofs. 15, 14, 5, 50. Jeff has the numbers. Put it together and give us a number that you can recommend. That's
Right.
what
And the
we've
thing
got
is
support.
I think that we need to answer the question that Doug and I don't believe you can say in the referendum that we're going to take the reimbursement from the state
Right.
and put it towards, I don't think you can say that.
You
So,
can't.
all right. So Tim, you're around 15 as well.
Yep.
Murray,
15.
Walter?
Hang on,
Walter's
he's
busy
spinning-
talking to
mute.
other people.
Spinning on the phone.
We've lost him. Wendy?
You're spinning in circles.
I think in the current environment, 15 is not gonna fly with the taxpayers, but again, I, without the data, I don't know what the right answer is, but, and I think a lot depends upon what's gonna happen with school budgets and everything else, but I think 15 is too high personally.
Well, it might be, but I think that when the roof starts really leaking, because some of these could, you know, those membranes could start to disintegrate and it won't matter.
I'll support whatever everybody agrees to. There's no problem there. I'll be supportive because I think it needs to be that high, but I don't think it's gonna fly with the taxpayers at that rate.
Right. Okay, Tina Scott? What's your number?
I don't have a number, but what I don't want is a number that kind of fixes the problem. So if the number is 15 and that fixes the roofs, and then with reimbursement, we fix town roofs, and that schools and town roofs are both fixed for the foreseeable future, whether that's, 10 years for some and 20 years for others. I just we can't say that here's a number and it almost fixes everything, or here's a number and it fixes this, but not this. So I concede to you guys, I'm the rookie. I just want a number that fixes everything.
Mhm.
And whatever number is up to the voters. And I don't know how to say that without.
He wants 25,000.
No, I want the 21 million. So if 15 plus reimbursement gets to 21, and we're all fixed for the next 25, 30 years with the majority of our town buildings, that's the number I want.
Yeah, but the thing is we want to show a plan that once we do this, we're not going for big budget items in 20 years, that we're doing this in a fashion that we're doing. And I'm sorry to say, it's like the Brooklyn Bridge. You got to paint it and walk across the bridge and start painting again. And that's the way roofs and buildings are for municipalities. So.
Right, and I understand that from being on this committee. And I know that you seem to be fixed every 30 years, but I want my neighbors to understand that just because we fixed the roof at Hazardville Memorial in 2020 doesn't mean we don't have to fix again in 2050.
Right, exactly. Gina, what's your number?
I would love to see 13.5.
Okay.
That being, no, I'm serious.
I'm sorry, Gina. I only laughed because next to me, I have the number written down 13.5.
Right. And again, I'm with Scott. I think we need to have a reasoning behind that number. So I'm going to be okay with 14.5 or really even 15. If that's going to get a better, like, hey, we're going to fix everything. I think 13.5 is going to be, you got to look at the psychology behind it. So I think 13.5 is a more manageable number in people's minds than something closer to 15. So
Okay.
I'd go 13.5, and I
Okay,
guarantee
Melissa?
Jeff can do it for.
What do you have for your
I'm
number?
unmuting, hang
We're
on.
not
Can
fixing
you hear me?
anything.
Okay,
I'm fine with anything in the 13 to 17 range, and I really want to see Jeff's numbers and think it through from there.
okay. All right. I don't know, in my past life, what I would do is sit down and see how much it costs to do everything that people are gonna ask you to do and calculate how much I think I should be asking for a fee. And then I'd have to sit down and say, what are people willing to pay me to do this? And those numbers didn't always jive. And I think I have to agree with Gina. I'm a 13.5, but I gotta see when Jeff puts it all together, if I can get a blend of roofs that are town and school, I can get a good 5-year plan or a 3-year to 5-year plan. I would go a little bit higher if the plan looked better. But I'm thinking the figure that I can live with. I want to shoot for 13.5 because I think that's what people will give me for money. So Jeff, do you have direction now?
I can do it. We'll get it done.
Okay, and we want that for the 7-9 meeting. And I will be remote on vacation for that, but I promise that they've promised me I can still print and be remote. So I like paper and I like to write on stuff and look at different, roof things. So I look forward to seeing what Jeff can put together. Any
I will
more
sign it again
comments?
for everyone.
Comments, questions, or concerns?
Yeah, Donna, this is Chris. Can you just go over that time frame again to get us? I think you said before to get the referendum in, the vote for
We
November.
have to, the council has to approve and set a public hearing to be held before the first week of September or the first week of September. And then we will vote. We have to vote to go to referendum by the first week of September or during that.
The council has to vote, right?
The
Okay.
council has to vote. This
Yep.
has to go to the council, I believe, the first meeting in August. Because that's the only next meeting, because the next meeting of the council is the 6th. We meet on the 9th. Jeff's gonna have a package somewhere between 13.5 and 15 that he's gonna show us that's gonna be a good, blend and something that will show a good 3 to 5 year plan where a bulk of things happen. And then we have to get it on the agenda for August for the town council to set the public hearing. We'll have a special meeting that's a public hearing. And then we will, on the first meeting of September, set the referendum. If we can get 6 votes. And I really would like to see more than 6, because if this goes 6-5, it's not going to go anywhere. And we'll know more, about how we're getting our money back from all the COVID. I mean, we've managed to, we kept very good track of all the monies expended on COVID. And we'll know if there's a second wave. We're going to know how we're opening our schools. We're going to know, how our schools are going to be run. There are just so many things that we don't know. We had a great plan and we were moving along, but Mother Nature and things, it's just, it's given us a lot of uncertainty. But I'm certain of one thing, those roofs need to be done on the schools and the buildings that we're using now. And it's not going to go away. So that's all I have to say. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, update on the transfer station. There's funding available for the design. I've still been picking and looking at the budget on occasion to try to find money for the implementation of the design when it's finished. This has to go to DPW at this point, and then from DPW, it's got to go, when that's to the council. And we got to find money, and every opportunity I have, I ask for money and I asked to do this. And people wish I would shut up.
Donna,
Doug?
is it in design now? No.
It is not in design now. We have the $37,000 for the contract documents.
You're such a good Democrat, Donna.
Huh?
Said you're such a good Democrat, always asking for money.
I'm a Republican who spends money. Hey, every party has to have one. You know what? I only spend money on things that like we need that are in deplorable condition. I would love to just spend money on anything.
You don't need to defend your spending to me.
Okay, thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. So I have asked for it to be on the next DPW subcommittee meeting, and I'm hoping one will occur in July because we have the trash ordinance to do. So that's where we sit on that. And the master plan, do we know how much funds are available still for design, Jeff?
Yes, there is, well, we still have $25,000 that we owe BL for the rest of their presentation, and that capital account there's a little bit of a kitty left in there, but there wasn't much, and I misplaced my note.
Right, because we had $100,000 that their
Yeah, pretty
contract
close to
was,
that
and you're
number.
saying we have a quarter of that left.
And they're tweaking the presentation from the notes they made from the last thing. And I know there was a
Okay.
question on the other slide from the annex, and it wasn't an additional slide. What it was is they missed the second year breakout of what to do on the slide, and that was added in the information I sent out from John Ireland. So I believe he might have misspoke with saying it was a slide. It was to set
Okay.
his actions.
All right. Thank you. So I guess what I would like to see them do is do some presenting to the council, because we liked, I'll open it up after I finish. I thought this committee liked the Jablonski presentation and what could be done there. I didn't think anybody had any concerns with what they said about Higgins, the town hall, and the police station, and I think that, and the library. Right, and,
No, I think all those made sense.
all right. So any other comments? The only thing is the annex, I thought it was better, but it still needs to be developed. Are we
Those
in
were just their
agreement with that?
suggestions. Yeah,
Okay. So
Yeah,
I
we
guess,
were out looking at Alcorn about a week or so ago. That was one of the last buildings they were looking to get a tour into.
okay,
They're going to be coming back with better information. I'm going on vacation, so I'll put a note in my calendar to come back and John Ireland a little bit and see what's going on and how it's going, if there's any new updates with the last meeting that he had.
okay. So Jeff, will you be on vacation next week or the week we have our meeting?
Next week I'll be on. I'll be here for the meeting, so I'm going to be working
Okay.
very hard Friday to get your numbers for the roof.
Okay.
Wait, BL didn't take a tour of these buildings before they did their presentation?
So in the midst of it all, no, they did not get a chance to tour all the facilities. They relied heavily on me to supply them with information they requested. And then I kind of, I would come in and this is kind of going back, I think, early fall, late fall, winter. And then I got them over to the annex and then got them to tour the other locations. We did share, I think, the SBS facilities assessment, my capital plan with them and some other items. But they did not tour Alcorn at the time they presented. And I was trying to get them over at Alcorn I think that was hinging on some of the things with the High Street and youth center moving around. So I told them, I go, you need to look at these locations as well to vet them.
Right, right.
Well,
The
they should
Alcorn,
have toured each and every one of those buildings before they presented on it, and that's just my opinion, and now I'm gonna shut up, because that's really, really frustrating.
right, they should have
What's
looked at the
your
town plan of development. Did they even look at the town plan of development?
They had a copy of it and I can ask
Okay.
John.
Yeah, I know, because it was part of, you know, the RFP that they would be
There was a
following the
good goal
town.
going, and I think with when the COVID kind of started in March, we had a lot of plans lined up. And they were coming through and doing a lot of touring and looking at everything, taking pictures. And, you know, this kind of lasted a little bit longer. We weren't always, at the beginning, we weren't bringing vendors in. A lot of vendors weren't coming in. And then in April, I said, hey, let's get out here. Let's get this thing kind of going. And that's where we were in our last presentation. So a little bit farther behind than where we probably would like it to be, but, you know, unusual circumstances we're in today.
Yeah. And if you could just ask them, please, to make sure in their next iteration that they do take the plan of conservation and development into account, that they make sure they've physically seen the buildings, and that they, you know, we like their content, but there's a lot of context and a lot of sort of deepening of detail that, you know, we're going to be looking for, kind of thing.
Okay.
Something like
Donna?
Yep. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, you know, Jeff, I know you're trying your best to work with BL and stuff, but I'm kind of pissed at them because they were supposed to be done at the, you know, they were supposed to be done in December with the whole project, and they dragged their feet. You know, all this is on them. It's not on staff or anything. Yeah, COVID came into play, but they should have been well done when that came into play. So they're not very happy in my eyes.
And I know, Doug, that you guys were, you know, the committee was very impressed with, you know, their knowledge and understanding of, you know, stuff in the town and, you know, understanding what we were doing. And like I said, I did not participate, so.
Yeah, they dropped the ball big time. I'm not happy with them now, so.
That they just did not come to tuition with, so.
Nope. That's all, Donna.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. You know, like I said, there's certain things I'm not involved in, and, you know, that's one of them. So, do you have any more comments from the committee? No?
I have a quick one, everyone. Happy 4th of July.
Thank you, Jeff.
Enjoy your
I know.
holiday, friends and family.
Yeah, I still want to see my requisition for your vacation. I didn't come through my email, by the way.
I'll get it right to you.
Okay.
I know. Everybody have a safe holiday. I mean, we all need a break and spend time with family and stuff. And, you know, I'm actually flying again, so.
Yeah, and you're going to be quarantined in a bunker when you get back, so.
Oh my God. No, I'm going to Colorado. They don't have high numbers there, so I guess I'm all set. And I'm just.
Tomorrow things change, dear.
You know, Walter, I tell people that I flew on the 29th of February and on the 10th of March. I flew and got a message from Chris that he was declaring a state of emergency as I got on the plane. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, I was in shock.
Right.
I did not.
My stepmom flew to Poland in February and she's still not back.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but you know, all these things have such ramification on our lives and on how this town will move forward.
Yep.
And have we had any word, not to digress, Jeff, but have the playscapes opened yet? Jeff, do you know?
I don't believe they have. I'd have to double check. I
haven't.
think we were kind of going back and forth about, you know, how to clean them and how much the sun kills the
I
germs.
thought the UV rays would clean them.
I'm not a
immediately.
virologist. I'm going to defer that question.
And you're gonna have to defer that question to the health
They
department?
haven't developed a test for that yet, so.
That does
Well,
not
I'm-
happen immediately. The playscapes have metal and plastic similar to doorknobs and things indoors. And yeah, the UV rays may shrink the time that you could pass on the exposure, but it's still present. So no, the playscapes are still closed as of now.
Yep. Okay, we gotta get a plan for cleaning them. I'm hoping, you know, gonna be a long summer with no playgrounds. That's all I can say. All right, any other more questions, concerns, comments?
Go
Just as
team.
a- Just as a comment, Donna, can we map out the meetings for the summer, just so we can kind of plan our lives?
They are the second and the fourth Thursday of the month,
All summer?
all summer,
Okay,
all year.
That's fine, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep,
And also, I think we're going to be doing a lot of these remote meetings. And because we are such a big group and we are in such a small room, that as much as I would like to spend some time with you guys, I just think this might be for this committee a little bit easier until we can get a larger room to meet in.
The Jablonski
but I-
had that big room, Donna.
Yep.
No, but to Tim's point, we go meeting by meeting. So yes, as long as we know that that's the schedule, we're all in. We just don't know the schedule.
Oh, that is the schedule that was set in January, that we would be the second and fourth Thursday of the month.
That, yeah, but that hasn't happened every month.
It certainly has since January.
Let's just propose that it's from this point forward.
No, it's been this way since January, because I got my marching orders from Deb McCarthy. Randy and I both got our marching orders, and we would be the second and the fourth. He is the first and the third. When there's a fifth Thursday in the month, it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, then July has one, so.
Well, we're not going to meet on the fifth one, and that it's just how it is. We're going to be the second and the fourth.
thank you.
Hey, we can always meet in the town,
Scott's going to go home and check those meetings to make sure.
we could always meet at DPW and just push all the trucks outside, meet in the big garage, that's all.
It's a great place. We'll get it
Can
out.
we drive the trucks?
Only Wendy, if you can climb up into the driver's seat.
I want to go home first, though.
All right, can I take a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, everybody have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, good night.
All right, you guys too.